Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage, Mark Gunther.
Let's see.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. We've got a lot to cover in a little bit of time, so I'm going to get right to it. Joining me is David Crane. David is to my right. David's the CEO of NRG Energy. On the far right, which is where he belongs, is Andy Karsner, the chairman of Manifest Energy.
Well,
you got it in on you
yeah,
there.
that was good.
So, David, I'm going to start with you. You wrote a CEO letter a few months ago that got a lot of attention, spoke very passionately about the climate issue and what needed to be done about it. But NRG is not a household name company. We have people here from Microsoft. We have them here from Apple, Walmart.
Are you trying to humiliate me right
GE.
from the... So are you going to say next, you're a very small person?
You're a
compared
very
to...
small company, David.
Yeah.
No, what I'm going to say is, how do we get the CEOs of those companies to share the passion, the willingness to speak out that you were able to demonstrate?
Well, I mean, that was one of the purposes of the letter, because, I mean, I actually think, and you know, you might expect me to, as the sort of CEO of a Fortune 500 company, to believe this, but in the society we have right now, where basically government is paralyzed, you know, NGOs, academia is like struggling for the money, and you know, religious leaders don't have the clout that they once did. I mean, you know, if you're the CEO of a company, you know, it's pretty close to a dictatorship. I mean, you know, people in my company do what I tell them, you know, to do. You know, I don't have a Congress to deal with in my company. You know, the board's there, but you know. So
I'm feeling shareholder activism
right.
coming on.
As long as the share price goes up, they're good.
Yeah.
So, so I actually have this view that multinational corporations have a huge role to play at this point in time. And, you know, Jib Ellison, who's here, taught me something once which was really important, which was, you know, it's one thing to have a position, and literally if you poll multinational corporations, 98% of them want to be, you know, want sustainability to be part of who they are. And quite frankly, after the letter that ExxonMobil has published this month, it's probably 100%. But yeah, I think ExxonMobil, by the way, deserves a round of applause for finally sort of coming to the right side. So tepid applause, but it's a start for the if there's someone from ExxonMobil here. But one of the things that Jib told me, which is like, it's one thing for a CEO to sort of believe it, you know, with their brain that sustainability has to be part of what their corporation is. But what you're really looking for is the CEOs that have it in their heart. And, you know, and I think one of the most, the best things that we have going right now is more and more CEOs of major companies, as you say, companies that are far more powerful than NRG in terms of getting to consumers, have it in their heart, and they want it to be their personal legacy. And I can tell you as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, don't underestimate the importance of what a CEO wants as their own personal legacy. And, you know, and I know there are investors in the room, and, you know, I've probably done 500 investor meetings in my 10 years as this company. And people always say that they invest in management, but I think maybe twice in those 500 times, someone has actually tried to get at what makes me tick. You know, and so in that letter, I'm like, I think our shareholders deserve to know, because this is really what makes me tick. This is the mark that I want to leave on my company. And what I see, you know, Muhtar Kent at Coca-Cola, Doug McMillan at Walmart now, Paul Pullman at Unilever. I mean, you're talking about people with running mighty companies that want to do the right thing. And I mean, Unilever, and we just announced a deal with them, and I promise I'll shut up. They touch 2 billion people a day. A day. 2 billion. Think about it. That's 2 with a B.
But he's actually been perhaps the most visible CEO
yeah,
in the world
look, and
on
now,
this set
and
of
now
issues.
if you look at all these lists, he's the most admired CEO in the world. And believe me, CEOs care about where they stand on the most admired list. You know, so I don't know what motivates him, but I mean, I'm sure he's being motivated by this. So I think what NRG wants to be is, I want to align our company. You know, I'm getting old, and I want to align my company with people who want the same things as I want, which is to solve this freaking problem, because this is a huge problem.
Andy, we're going to talk about...
Disagree with that, Mr. Karsen.
Yeah, way to give me a soft, warm cuddly to knock down. That was great.
Let's see if we could do the Bruin thing there. I mean, because that was the...
Yeah, I'm going to do it with less civility, I'll tell you that.
Andy, for those who don't know, Andy served in the Bush administration. He's a Republican. How do you spread...
A little bit to the right of Attila the Hun.
Yeah.
How do you... What's your messaging to your Republican friends around this issue?
Good setup. Nice warm softy for Dave, and this guy was with the guy who eats children and hates the world. So nice. I like that. Nice equal time on that thing. So, and by the way, we were going to come up here earlier because we didn't want to be the people that stopped you from after dinner drinks and dessert and networking. We thought that would suck. And they said, no, because the glasses are clinking and people are moving around. And I kind of said, I live in Washington. I served in the Bush administration. I'm completely accustomed to speaking when nobody listens at all. So you don't, it's okay for you guys to make noise and all that. It's fine. Let me make a note on David and the letter is what you had asked about before I take on that onerous task of talking about Bob Inglis's probabilities for success. I've known David, a very long time. In a past lives, we were both emerging market, project finance, independent development guys running around Southeast Asia. And that was fun in a younger day.
Yeah, let's stop going down those storylines.
Yeah, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And because there's a point here that people don't know that before he was a CEO, before he was an investment banker, before he was a lawyer, he was running around building these projects in Southeast Asia. Instead of hanging out in the Singapore Airlines lounge, kind of living it up like the rest of us were, David, on the side, was investing, developing, aggregating groups of Chinese to build a popular nightclub in the Lang Kwai Fong district of Hong Kong. And
really, nobody knows that, and no one really needed to know
They
that.
need to know it. It's as important as the letter. Because in David's soul, he is a restless innovator and entrepreneur.
Oh, that came
with a compassionate heart. And that's the last warm kiss I'm going to give him. Okay? Because banking on the compassionate heart and forward vision of a majority of CEOs to solve this problem is a very, very bad bet. Okay, so albeit that it's inspiring and important and visionary, everything that you're doing should and must be done. It is fundamental and necessary, and everybody in this room should be pursuing it. It is altogether insufficient and to a large degree incremental. And we need to take very, very big swings in ways that the private sector alone can't afford to do on its own because the balance sheets aren't big enough and the interests are all too dislocated. So I have nothing but commendation for David and what he's doing. But I think that the conversation has to raise up to a different level where it's less about one company's vision or any given company's proof points of ethics and a lot more about what we're doing as society with very big swings on a very short time frame. Argue with that.
Do you want to take a swing before we dig into the utility industry?
Well, yeah, Andy, you ignorant slut. I mean, it's like...
No, I didn't mean you. I wanted to let him take a swing.
He was going to get that in anyway.
Oh, I misspoke. Sorry.
David, you ignorant slut.
Okay, that was your line.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want him to say something?
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to go. What do you mean by big swings? What are you saying?
I see. Well...
was that enough of a powder puff for you?
That's good. Yeah, no. That's easy. Woo, tee it up. So, I love David's vision. I'm very long on the vision, very invested in the vision of distributed solar in a Jeffersonian way, and everybody should have it. And the old wooden poles are too old, and we got to get rid of it, and we're done with the grid. But there's a degree of fantasy in that because we're not going to do this, that is, address emissions in a consequential way at volumes that matter without addressing very significantly the nuclear fuel cycle and what we do about nuclear power globally and how we deal with greenhouse gas emissions coming from large-scale coal. Because the U.S.-centric conversation that we were having today from the comfort of this wonderful hotel pretends that we're still the largest economy on Earth with the fastest growth rate. And we are about to be neither, permanently. Okay? And so coal is growing. So if you don't want to have coal in the United States and you're going to lock it out because we believe it's all going to be solar, that coal is going to move around to Shanghai and Xi'an as easily as you can burn it in Chicago, and it's going to have the same impact on the atmosphere. And to pretend otherwise is a bit of a fantasy. And so we need the technologies that convert coal and greenhouse gas emissions from waste streams into value streams so that we can take that earthly element, carbon, and make it inert and do something more intelligent with it than having long-range, over-the-horizon placebos that make us feel good, like short-term fantasies that solar will make up for all of it.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, so while Andy is blathering on in this bloviating way.
Bring it.
No, I mean, I agree. You know, I really like to speak at universities, and I'm always in awe when, like, I get invited to talk to engineering students, because as a lawyer, you know, I'm amazed because I can't understand a thing they do. But, you know, I usually start by saying, okay, you know, if you want to, you know, possibly make $1 billion, you know, work your life in the profession that you like and save the world, will you do that? And, you know, I'm glad to report that almost 100% of American engineering students at colleges will buy into that equation, the $1 billion save the world while working as an engineer. And I would say, and to me, that's post-combustion carbon capture. Because, I mean, I don't actually even think it's a good thing for the United States to be coal-free. I mean, I disagree with Michael Brune about that. Because fuel diversity is so important, and I think one of the stories that wasn't told this year, but, you know, we were at the front lines of it, is that, you know, if the polar vortex that had happened this year had happened 2 years from now, just the plants that we are slated to retire, the coal plants and the oil plants between those times, the Northeast not only would have gone dark, it would have gone cold. And because the gas network is, you know, for all this gas we talk about, they just could not deliver enough gas in the Northeast. And I don't know what the governors up there are doing, but another polar vortex next year with the plants that are being retired, it's going to be a problem. So hopefully it is a 1 in 100 years. So I believe in a coal future, but, you know, I do believe ultimately we're talking about a distributed future, the thing that Andy mocked at the beginning of his thing, and I'd love to talk about distributed.
Please, go ahead.
But I'd say just on his point, while he's talking about it, you know, NRG is going to announce before the end of this month $1 billion post-combustion carbon capture project.
Where?
That's going to at the single biggest coal plant in the United States, which is a plant called Parrish outside Houston. That's going to capture 1.6 million tons of carbon a year, and you know, hopefully it'll work. I mean, if I were king of energy for a day, I would put all our research into post-combustion carbon capture, because, you know, globally it's the most important technology. And right now, the way they're capturing it with the amine solutions or ammonia, I think it has to be completely rethought, because that takes so much energy to capture the molecule and then separate and all that. So people are starting to, you know, do lab work on, like, completely different ways of capturing carbon out of flue gas. And I really think that's the most important thing from a climate change. So I do believe in a distributed future, and the distributed future is green. But these coal plants that we're having, you know, it's true, as Michael says, there hasn't been a new coal plant that started construction in this country since 2008. And the average age of the existing coal plants is 43 years old. So they're not going to be around in, you know, 20, 25 years.
So without a carbon price, how do the economics of capturing CO2 out of a coal plant
Well, I mean,
work?
we're fortunate because our youngest coal plants happen to be in the Gulf Coast, where we make the economics work by getting oil.
So you're going to use the CO2 for enhanced oil recovery.
Well, otherwise, you know, who's going to pay for the $1 billion? I mean, I should say, if there are government people here, the Department of Energy's, you know, put in 170 million of that billion. And 170 million, it's good money, but there's $830 million of private money. And if you're solving for carbon and there's no price on carbon, you know, all of us, you know, business people realize, so we have to get the money out through the oil price. Anyway.
So, Andy, I think we should give you a chance now to make some news.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, actually, it's more of a request but I'm announcing tonight the formation of my very first startup nonprofit. I've done lots of startups. I've done lots of companies. This is a nonprofit, and I thought this would be a good occasion, because this is the right crowd to get the most critical and intelligent feedback for a new startup called Polar Promise, which is live now, tonight, at polarpromise.org. And what Polar Promise is actually something that originated in a conversation with Dave and I about me discussing with him my passion for polar regions. Many of you know I'm on the board of Conservation International. Some people are hotspot tropical forest people. Some people are ice people, penguin people. That's me, right? And so
By the way, this is a guy who took his honeymoon in Antarctica. So
yeah.
I want to meet your wife sometime.
Yeah.
But she's from Sweden. It's
Warmth
cold up there,
on
right?
ice. Yeah, it was good. The situation is, you guys became aware and are very aware and plugged in. So you notice things like the West Antarctica ice shelf having a fissure, and NASA saying it is now beyond a tipping point. And you notice when the Larsen B ice shelf cracks up. But not a lot of people are aware or take for granted that 50 years of science, and only 50 years in the whole history of mankind, are we taking science from research stations in the Arctic and Antarctic. And that science is the overwhelming amount of science that populates this very discussion that we're having. In fact, you can't have a discussion on climate science be remotely complete without understanding ice core samplings and atmospheric measurements and ozone readings and marine biology that come from our research in these places. And as I was discussing with Dave, over the 50 years evolution of this critical mission that is more critical than ever, we now have 9 out of every 10 people working on that mission, someone who supports a legacy supply chain of delivering oil in the most expensive way to the farthest reach corners of the earth. We now have 8 out of every $10 dedicated to polar research programs going to oil and oil deliveries of those programs. So much the point that the US government had a blue ribbon commission last year that said the science programs can disappear altogether. Frankly, there's no constituency. The only way people even know about it is like every 3rd year, Matt Lauer dons a red jacket, and we go, "Where's Matt Lauer? Oh, he's on the ice." And then people know about it. And so David and I started talking on a fishing trip or something, and we said, we can fix this. We have the technology. We can engineer weather-hardened designs in a place that has 24/7 sun for 6 months a year that coincides with the workloads, and we can fix this. So we've just made an agreement with the National Science Foundation, and David NRG is going to be our charter partner and sponsor in this. We're looking for more participants in this, but we encourage you to look at the website and give us your critical feedback, because it's 1.0, and we want 2.0 by the end of the summer, and in a measurable time frame, we want to get rid of all the oil that goes out to the ice in our Arctic and Antarctic research stations so we can sustain and make more robust this critical science.
So you save money by replacing the oil with renewables, in theory.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
So a lot to cover, as I said. So if there's a logic to bringing renewables to the Arctic, because energy is so expensive there, there's also a logic, as you've talked about, David, bringing it to the Caribbean, where electricity prices are 25, 30 cents a kilowatt. I understand the two of you are now working together on a Caribbean project. This is under the Manifest Energy.
That's right. You're making news yourself tonight.
No. Well,
Thinking about
we
it.
can describe our pieces of it.
Well, first of all, retail electricity in the Caribbean is 45 to 55 cents. It's not 25 to 30.
according to Andy's chart, it was 25, 30.
That's
but
just
okay.
the marginal cost for the oil. But it's an all oil-based. Look, I mean, to us, for people who've worked, I mean, historically the Caribbean is a dumping ground for 3rd-generation technology because it represents 0.01% of world demand. So, like if you look at the autos that are down there, it's it's like 2 generations old. But microgrids, renewable-driven microgrids, if we really want to have a fossil fuel-free world, I think it's going to come to a Caribbean island before it comes to the United States, because you can do everything down there. The transportation, a 100-mile range Nissan Leaf, may be tough if you're commuting 50 miles to work in Texas with the air conditioning on, but a 10-mile island, it's a great, it's got all the range it needs. So we've been working down there. We announced a deal with Sir Richard Branson to turn Necker Island into 70% renewable, and we really think the things we're going to learn about renewable-driven microgrids down there we can bring back to the United States, and this is an alternative vision of the future. And I really think that the big issue that we all have to face, and look, you look at the people here, and we have to avoid spending our time together, preaching to the converted, because we all agree on what the end game is, and we can have robust debates on the way forward. But one of the ways in which we're divided is the future based on the grid, or is the future based on sort of a non-grid alternative? And my company, even though we make 98% of our revenues currently off the grid, I'm pretty convinced.
From the grid, you mean?
From the grid, yeah. We don't run or operate the grid, but all of our electrons go over the grid right now. But I'm completely convinced we're going to a sort of microgrid future. But that future is going to be snuffed out by the powers that be unless we get together and work together, because the counterattack that the people who want to perpetuate the status quo, at least in the electricity industry, is going to mount against us in the next year is going to be something that we barely haven't even contemplated yet. Yet we're fractured. And so I think that we have to work together. I'd love to see us figure out how we can work together on that. And if I could just take one more minute. The way I'm looking at this problem, I don't have any hope that the government is going to do anything important in the next few years. So we need to spend the next couple of years doing a bottom-up revolution. And the way I look at it, and this is sort of channeling a little bit of Simon Sinek's work, just to simplify, 15% of the population as innovators and early adopters, that's everyone in the room. 15% of the people are lost, they're laggards. It's the 70% in the middle, what during the Vietnam War we called the silent majority, or, the group of people that over the last 10 years went from hostile to same-sex marriage to positive to same-sex marriage. And now it's carrying the day across the nation. We need to win that 70%. And we're not doing a good enough job we spend too much time just talking to each other. We got to get that 70% of the population. I'm from the Midwest. We got to get that silent majority to be on our side, and they're at the tipping point. They're not demonizing clean energy the way they were 2 or 3 years ago, because they're seeing the electric cars out there. They're seeing people with solar on their roof. But we need to push forward, and this is where the great consumer product companies out there are huge to have them on our side. And to me, this is all I want to spend my time on next 2 years, is winning over. We've got
David, if you want to win them over, you're going to have to do something other than $100,000 cars saving the world $1 million at a time, and having policies with $7,000 subsidies.
Wait, before we get there,
yeah. Because I know those people.
Wait.
Those are my peeps.
We're going to go there, but I do want you to resist the joke for 30 seconds and tell us.
That was dead serious.
Tell us what you're doing in the Caribbean,
right.
Because it does matter.
Yes.
It's kind of an inspiring vision. It could have an impact here.
And I won't get wandering and lost on it. Let me tell you what's going on in the Caribbean. Again, I'm going to give attribution and inspiration to David for what he did in Haiti, philanthropically, charitably, has set an example down there. And then in conversations we had, we said, well, how do you build on this? This is a hard place to do business. It's all disaggregated. Everybody's all over the map. But the paradigm is the same. They're all on this high-priced oil. When I was a public servant and oil hit $147 in American Trust Territory Islands, Marshall, Samoa, we kept kids out of school. We closed down hospitals because it was too expensive to generate on islands. And these are the places first impacted by climate change. So it makes the most sense to have these microgrids and community integrated scale models where they are cost effective on the first day and don't rely on policy. So to your soft prompt there, Mark, we're forming, Manifest is normally involved in engaging, advising, investing in innovators and technologies. We're starting a fund together with the Global Environmental Facility. It's a public-private partnership. It's the largest allocation that they have given, along with the Inter-American Development Bank and soon the IFC, that will be exclusively dedicated to emissions reductions in the Caribbean basin. And it will follow around and chase much of David's deal flow that is hopping island to island, and he's taken the leadership of the Carbon War Room. And develop these microgrids in ways that are cost-effective on the first day, but bring turnkey packages, not just the engineering and the development and the ownership and the operations, but also the funding. And so we're very excited about that development this coming year.
So we are out of time, but I'm going to take a question from the crowd. I have to give someone a chance here. Anyone want to stand up and pop a question out?
Chickens, come on, bring it. Somebody must have drank heavily. Come on, where are you? Yeah. I know Andy Serwer's there going, give me the name of those companies again for sponsors.
Please, yeah, I can't really see. Speak loud, please.
Yeah, hi, Michael Brune from Sierra Club.
Yeah.
Way to stir it up.
Now I get to be in the center.
Let's go, twofer.
So, appreciated the emotional roller coaster of the conversation there. I'm just curious, who's going to pay for the CCS?
Who said CCS?
David,
You
CCS.
you both
I
did.
see.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that.
So beyond,
technology.
beyond the oil recovery down in the Gulf, if this is a genuinely global solution, how does it get paid for?
Good
Well,
question.
I mean, I don't think it's that great a question because, I mean, first you have to prove that the technology works
But
at scale.
assume it works.
Okay, you put your $1 billion. You know, no, I mean, yeah, so you prove up the technology, and at the end of the day, as Michael himself has said, I mean, no one's building new coal plants in the United States, and, you know, and Michael takes credit for it on behalf of the Sierra Club, but, you know, what's killing coal plants in the United States is the price of natural gas, as that's what's killing nuclear plants as well. So, but you know, the immutable fact is that China and India have a lot of coal plants. And so, you know, I think if we demonstrate the technology at scale, I mean, ultimately, you're right, or Michael's right, is that not every coal plant is in a position to sort of turn, you know, captured carbon into oil recovery. But this is the way we're going to demonstrate it at scale, and sooner or later, there's got to be a price on carbon.
Okay. I
Or
think
else-
that's-
Well, let me
or
just
else
say one thing
people
about
are-
Michael's thing, because Michael, you always seem to imply that technology only applies to one source of energy. And technology itself is agnostic. People's innovation, young people coming out of MIT that are nuclear engineers who believe they can detoxify the fuel cycle and solve the problems that current fission have, I'm banking on that innovation. I want them believing they have a robust future. And it's the same with the guys that are working on metal organic frameworks out of the University of Chicago and the guys that are working out of adsorptive materials and things you haven't heard of yet because you've written off this source as dead. But we have to manage it. You can't arrest greenhouse gas emissions in the time frame that is consequential by putting your head in the sand on coal. We have got to get to a solution on it.
Okay. All right.
Does anyone else want to ask a question after that? Wow.
There's one back there.
Wait,
Guys,
there's one
no,
back there.
no. We really are out of time. I'm getting millions. People are. I'm getting it from everywhere, including my boss.
We'll meet you at the bar. We will meet you at the bar.
Yeah.
So let's join me in thanking David and Andy.
Okay, man.
And give me
Good to
one
see
more
you.
second for an announcement.
Can we leave?
Just stay there a sec.
Not dismissed.
Dessert and coffee are on the way if they're not there already. We will have a full and long day tomorrow beginning at 6 a.m. with Conrad Anker Fitness at the Gazebo. The breakfast roundtables will begin at 7:45 a.m. sharp. Breakfast is served outside each of the roundtables. Enjoy your dessert and coffee. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.